Talking with Sam McEwen from Omaha World Herald. Sam, want to switch gears to Nebraska basketball here. Obviously, Fred Hoiberg and crew in kind of a crucial spot tonight with Michigan, especially coming off, I don't know what else to call it, an embarrassing loss to Penn State.
Sure.
Can Nebraska lose this game tonight and you still feel good about them making the tournament?
Yeah, I think if Nebraska loses tonight and then they beat Minnesota and they beat Ohio State and they beat Iowa, then I think
So they need to win out if they lose tonight, basically.
Not necessarily. I think you're going to hear a lot of debate. So if they don't win tonight and they go 19-12, I think they're going to be, in that first four discussion. And then if they go to the Big Ten tournament and they win one, I think they're in. I think, well, I don't know. I think if they get to 20 in the regular season, then I think they're in. If they get to 21 with the regular season plus Big Ten, I think they'll be in. And that's not based on win numbers. That's based on what I think that'll say about their resume. I think Nebraska has perhaps the most interesting resume in college basketball in the sense that they have some incredibly good wins. They really do. And they have some really not good losses. Like the Rutgers loss, I don't care who they have on their team. By resume, that's not a great
loss. It's a bad loss, yeah.
It's not. And so I know they have talent. And I was there that night, and you tip your cap to Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. They're great. That's not a game Nebraska should have lost. And I think Nebraska knows that, too. The USC game isn't a great loss, although I think USC is a little bit better team than Rutgers.
God, I was hoping they would somehow find a way to win yesterday, and they were a decent dog, but I just hate having to cheer. It's just weird. Like, I'm cheering against Xavier. I'm cheering against Oklahoma. I mean, these teams are like 48, 49 in KenPom, and you're going to need some of those teams to kind of fall off if Nebraska's in the scenario that you just described a couple of minutes ago. It's going to you're going to be comparing a lot of resumes.
I think it helps that they beat Indiana earlier in the season and beat them bad.
Hey, good. Best wishes capping that team.
Yeah.
Isn't that Matt? How would you like to be? That's got to, well, and I say this as a Nebraska basketball fan, but don't have near the tradition, but a guy says he's leaving and it's like, wait.
And the team says, thank God, we'll start playing. Like, I don't know.
I don't. That's a strange basketball team. They're not Illinois by any stretch, but still.
Oh, God.
No, they're not. I think that the thought process at Indiana, and I don't think this is wrong, is that Indiana should be a lot better than just on the bubble. Yeah. Like they should be.
It's preseason top 20 team.
Well, they may have the largest NIL budget, and they're not playing like that. They're playing like they don't. And so, I don't know what exactly they're going to do there, but Indiana's 7-11 in quad 1 and quad 2 games. Now Nebraska's 9-10. So it's not that far off. But, Indiana's won some basketball games. And it's going to be really interesting down the stretch. I'm sure our beat writer Wilson Moore will do some what you call, hidden resumes, because man, is this thing going to get interesting. And there's a feeling that Nebraska is in better shape than others because of some of the road wins.
I agree.
Yeah, the Creighton win is the win the gift that's going to keep on giving. That's the key one that they got early in the season. I think winning at Oregon's fine. If you were to watch Nebraska basketball and just watch them, and say, okay, let's size it up as the eye test. That's an interesting conversation when you get into that, because I do feel like at times, aesthetically, Nebraska is not, the prettiest team to watch. And that's an area where I will be curious to see how it sort of progresses. Nebraska does have some great wins. I think at times they can be a tough watch. and there might be some other teams that people are looking at and saying that's a lot more enjoyable basketball team if they played their best, quote unquote, would, like Drake. Now Drake is in a unique position.
a big win for them yesterday on the road.
It was. Now Bradley must win the Missouri Valley tournament in order to make it. Their net rankings just don't make it possible for them to make the run. And so now, if Bradley does that, and then Drake, so you got to look at bid fees too. You got to start looking at all those things. You got to start looking at, who's going to steal a bid, who's that going to knock out. St. Mary's is gold. They're already in. San Francisco is not in. San Francisco could come and steal that thing in the conference tournament. And then all of a sudden, you got Gonzaga and St. Mary's and San Francisco. So so many things are going to happen. People cannot predict this yet. And if I were Nebraska, I'd get to 20 in the regular season. Do not assume that anything less than that's going to happen, because we have not even gotten to the bid thieves yet, and there could be 5 of them. That's not an exaggeration. There could be multiple bid thieves. Like the West Coast Conference could have.
How would you like to be
teams.
Gonzaga right now? That resume is not good.
It isn't, but they're going to make it. They'll be in, I think. There's a lot. There's just a lot. There's a lot left to talk about here. Oklahoma got to win. Again, now this is me talking. I said this last year too. I'd put Villanova in the tournament. I would. Not everybody agrees with that statement. Villanova is a banked-in Stephen Ashworth 3 from being in the tournament now, and I would put him in. But I have a lot more respect for the Big East than some other people do. A lot of people have no respect for that league. I mean, they just don't have it. It's a 4-bid league. I'm like, are you kidding me? No way. That's a way better basketball league than it's given credit for. But I could see Villanova missing. I could see Xavier missing the tournament. Xavier must beat Creighton. I think they have to. So there's a lot still out there to look for, and Nebraska has to basically do as much as it can to keep ahead of some of these other teams.
Sam, let me ask you. A couple of weeks ago, and it turns out it came true, which I didn't want it to. I said I'm not so worried about Nebraska moving up. At that time, they were 8th. I said I'm more worried about who's behind, running them down from behind. And lo and behold, here comes Indiana. Ohio State, I'm still not sure who looked atrocious yesterday. So I don't know who they are, but they still have Nebraska coming up. So that will play itself out. Is there a team or two that's on the heels or behind that has your attention to run Nebraska down?
Are you talking about the Big Ten?
The standings, correct.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes. I think Nebraska's schedule's a little bit easier. I mean, after today, they're going to play a reeling Ohio State, Minnesota, which lost to,
somehow Minnesota
Penn
has
State.
4 road wins in the conference.
I know. Well, they have talent. They have one of the 5 best players in the league, and anytime that happens, you can have a night. And they're all seniors, and they're kind of playing for their coach. I think
we almost left in. We almost left him for dead.
Yeah. So right now, Nebraska and Indiana are tied. Nebraska has the tiebreaker. Then you have Ohio State. Then you have Rutgers. Rutgers has a tiebreaker over Nebraska. If Nebraska loses tonight, they're 7-10. They're tied with Rutgers. Iowa's a little bit behind that. Nebraska would have to beat Iowa in order to own that tiebreaker. USC is 6-10. USC has a tiebreaker over Nebraska. Then you have Minnesota below it. So the real question here is, if Nebraska wins tonight, it puts itself almost in a different tier, because you have to feel good about Nebraska winning one more down the stretch and getting to at least 9-11. So that would put them maybe in a tier above Iowa and Minnesota. But we'll see what happens. Like, if they lose tonight, they are now 7-10, behind Indiana for a minute, tied with Ohio State, tied with Rutgers, and we'll see what Iowa does. So all those teams could potentially chase them down. And going up is hard. They actually have a tiebreaker over Illinois and Oregon, but those two teams are a game and a half up of Nebraska, and it's going to be hard to catch those teams, and they can't catch, or they won't catch. Let's just be honest. They won't catch Purdue, UCLA. They can't catch Maryland. Maryland has 2 over Nebraska, Wisconsin, Michigan State. So I would say that, right now, let's see. Yes, Nebraska is, I think, the 9 seed, and that's about as good as they're going to do. I don't think they're going to get above Illinois and Oregon. But guess what? Being the 9 seed in the Big Ten will get you in the tournament. The question is there going to be any teams that are below that 9 seed that get in? And the team that is most likely to do that is Indiana. And it would be a neat story. And it's time for that. It's time, obviously, I think Mike Woodson agrees. It's time for him to retire and move into a different phase of his career as a consultant or whatever he wants to do. He's had a great career. But Indiana making it in would be a good story. And people, that is a talented team. It's a more talented team than Nebraska. And if they make it in, you never know. They could do some dangerous stuff.
Sam, what do you do with Purdue? The metrics love them. My eyeballs don't. They've lost 4 in a row, but they're still hanging on between like 10 and 15 and Ken Palm and net ranking. Like, what do you do with Purdue?
I think they're coming back a little. They're regressing, so to speak, back to the mean. It won't surprise me if Wisconsin does the exact same thing. Obviously, Wisconsin.
Now that's a team you watch, and it's like, how?
Yeah, how have they accumulated what they have?
I'm
an Omaha Central grad has a lot to do with how. Yeah. I think he's the biggest reason. But and I'm not trying to knock Wisconsin. What I would say about both them, not so much Purdue, but I would say about Wisconsin is they're the wrong 12 seed away from getting knocked out in the first round, just like last year.
Did you watch the last 5 minutes of that game at all?
Against Oregon?
I did.
It was incredible. Yeah. How they did not want to win.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Wisconsin, and this is not evident when Wisconsin plays Nebraska. This is the key, because Wisconsin's run Nebraska off the court 3 of the last 5 games or whatever.
I'm just talking about inbouncing the ball, though, Sam.
I know.
3 times.
Wisconsin struggles athletically. They struggle with teams like Michigan State, like Oregon, not necessarily like Purdue, because Purdue isn't super. Wisconsin is the wrong 12 seed away from getting knocked out in the first round. A couple years ago, they were 3. They play Iowa State with all those guys, and some of those guys have left. But Iowa State is fast and tough and athletic, and Wisconsin struggles with that. And so they struggled with Oregon at the end of that game because Oregon is athletic. And so, I think Purdue is going to regress a little bit to the mean. They depend so much on those 2 guys, Smith and Lawyer. I've heard that Trey Kaufman-Wren's going to be first team All Big Ten.
I don't see it. I don't. Somebody tweeted that out the other day, and I'm like,
stats thing.
No, there's no way.
That'd just be a stats thing. That's all that would be.
And you can't leave.
He's got good numbers.
You can't leave Golden and Wolf off.
Mm-mm.
Golden
Danny Wolf will be on. He'll be a first teamer.
Okay, then who's getting booted? Because I
don't think there'll be 2 Michigan players.
Tanji's on. No, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Tanji's on. Braden Smith's on. If you pick a Michigan guy,
so Wolf or Golden.
Wolf.
I mean, you gotta. I'm not gonna lobby for Bryce, but I do think he's in the.
Oh, no question.
He's in the hyphenated last name.
Oh yes.
Discussion with with Smith, Bryce.
Bryce Williams should be there.
I mean, give me another surefire out of those 3. Like, if you make first team All Big Ten this year, that will be a lofty goal. Because you would think Queen would have to go somewhere, wouldn't he? Are you real? So you don't think that Rutgers is one enough for Bailey?
Well, yeah, I don't know how to answer that question. I don't know.
It's going to be hard.
I don't have to decide. I think Wilson Moore, is one of the voters. I don't know. Like, I think that's a challenging conversation to have. I know in football you'd go with the numbers and you wouldn't give it that much of a thought. How does Michigan State, if they win the conference
unless you play wide receiver at Michigan, unless you play wide receiver at Michigan State like Reed, and then you just kind of get in because you had the good.
So,
not that I remember.
I think that somebody from Michigan State needs to be on the first team. I don't know who that is. I mean, their stats are so evenly deployed that it's kind of challenging to figure out who it should be.
But if they win the league, it'd be pretty tough to leave somebody off.
in my opinion, but you never know. Martinelli at Northwestern, he's probably not going to make the cut. I would put Ace Bailey above Martinelli, for example.
It's gonna be
I
hectic.
think Ace Bailey's a much better player than Nick Martinelli. So,
if you got 30 teams in your league, you should have more than 5 spots. I don't know if 30 is an exaggeration,
that's a good point.
But shoot, man, get down to 5 is tough.
Hey, they got 30 teams in the NBA, still only got 5 All-Pros.
That's right. I would not put 2 Purdue players on there. I don't really think that that's justified. Again, you'd just be putting a guy on there for nice stats. So Purdue's not going to win the conference championship. They're going to finish 3rd or 4th, actually. And so I don't think it's realistic to put 2 guys from Purdue on there. I would put Bryce Williams there. I would, but they got to make their own decision. It will be a really good all-freshman team, and then there's Dawson Garcia. And again, there's a deal where I would say that Dawson Garcia is, he's a better player than Trey Kaufman-Renn. He made a choice, a laudable choice in my opinion, to spend his last 3 seasons at Minnesota. And he didn't have to. He could have gone a lot of places, but that guy's a good basketball player. And so I would be more inclined to put a Dawson Garcia on that list and say, you know what? He's one of the 5 best players in the league, and it doesn't matter that his team around him isn't very good. It's not his fault. So, that's probably, I'd go Garcia, Williams, Smith, Tanji, and who am I missing? I can't. Wolf. Yep.
Oh,
that's probably what I would do.
There you go. That's Sam McEwen.
If it wasn't Jaden Akins, from Michigan State, but that's probably my 5. That would be my 5. Yeah.
That's Sam McEwen from the Omaha World Herald. Sam,
good stuff, Sam. Appreciate
it as always.
Take care.